Grandma, Mommy says her stomach hurts. Help. Around 9 p.m., I was shocked to receive a call from my 5-year-old granddaughter. When I asked to speak to her mother, my daughter came on the line in a weak voice. It hurts, Mom. Given my daughter's usual resilience and strength, it must have been severe pain for her to say so. I called Dad too, but he's out drinking and said just to brush it off. To think he is out drinking while leaving his sick wife and young child. I was appalled, but there was no time to dwell on that. I hurriedly arranged for an ambulance and jumped into a taxi to head to daughter's house. It took about 15 minutes to get there, and as I entered, I found the house was cold, not even the heating was on in the dead of winter. My daughter was curled up on the floor in pain, groaning, while granddaughter was crying and rubbing her back. "Hold on," I said as I hugged my daughter tight. But she just said, "Take care of her," and then lost consciousness. "Where is the ambulance? Hurry, save my daughter." It felt like an eternity before the ambulance arrived about 5 minutes later. And that day, I tragically lost my beloved daughter. I am Madison, a 62-year-old housewife. Having been a stay-at-home mom for many years, my husband passed away 3 years ago, leaving me to spend my days in loneliness. However, my loneliness is somewhat alleviated by frequent visits from my daughter, Natalia, who lives about a 15-minute drive away. And Lydia, my granddaughter, who resembles Natalia when she was young, is honest, kind, and absolutely adorable. Natalia's husband, Cooper, met her at work, and they got married. He seemed like a dependable man, perfect for my gentle daughter. In hindsight, I should have scrutinized him more. After marriage, Natalia chose to become a housewife, supporting her husband as he wished. For about a year after their marriage, they seemed happy, but things started to change after Natalia got pregnant and Lydia was born. Cooper became authoritative, demanding, and left child-rearing entirely to Natalia, behaving in an uncommon way among young people today. Once, Natalia came to visit, looking lonely, and confided, "Mom, I might not be able to visit as often anymore." "What's wrong? Did something happen?" It turned out Cooper was giving her less and less money for living expenses, now only $500 a month. With Lydia growing and needing more food and clothes, Natalia had to cut back on her own expenses, even finding the bus fare to visit me burdensome. I noticed she was losing weight despite eating voraciously whenever she visited. I asked her about it multiple times, but she always insisted she was fine. I was quietly worried seeing her such behavior. I started giving her money and bringing food, but it was hard to intervene in their marital relationship. "Call me anytime." That was the only thing I could say. Perhaps I should have confronted Cooper then. If my husband were alive, he surely would. I still deeply regret not making a different decision at that time. One winter night at around 9 p.m., Lydia called me, saying, "Grandma, Mommy's stomach hurts. Help." Asking to speak to Natalia, I could hear her weakly pleading for help. Natalia has always been stoic, so it must have been serious. Lydia told me, "Dad went out drinking and won't come home even if I call." It was infuriating to hear about Cooper's indifference while 5 years old Lydia was desperately trying to help her mother. But this is not the time to be saying such things. "Grandma's coming right over, okay? It's going to be okay." I arranged for an ambulance and hopped into a taxi, arriving at my daughter's house in about 15 minutes. The ambulance hadn't arrived yet, and rushing into the house, it was freezing inside, despite it being the dead of winter, with no heating on. My daughter was suffering on the floor, and next to her, in pajamas, my granddaughter Lydia was sobbing, "Mommy, Mommy." A 5-year-old child couldn't have been expected to turn on the heat. I took off my coat and draped it over my granddaughter. "Grandma, please help Mommy." I tried to lift my daughter, urging her to hold on, but she just said, "Mom, take care of her," and then stopped responding to my calls. It was clear, even to a layperson, that every second was critical as her breathing became more and more labored. About 5 minutes later, the ambulance arrived, but those moments felt unbearably long and filled with anxiety. In the end, my daughter was taken away by the ambulance, unconscious. I tried contacting my SIL, Cooper, multiple times during this period, but couldn't get through. What on earth is he doing at a time like this? At the hospital, the doctors managed to briefly bring Natalia back to consciousness. "Natalia, can you hear me? Lydia and I are here. Mommy. Mommy." Mom, please, save Lydia. Get her away from Cooper. The diary. What did you say? I waited for her to say more, but my daughter lost consciousness again and never woke up. She had fallen down the stairs, sustaining internal injuries from a severe blow to her abdomen. If only the medical intervention had been sooner, she might have been saved. The overwhelming grief of never seeing my daughter smile again hit me hard. And my daughter's last words, save Lydia. Get her away from Cooper. The diary kept nagging at me. Grandma, Mommy won't wake up. Mommy. I could do nothing but hold Lydia, who refused to leave her cold mother's side. After calming down a bit, I gently coaxed the story out of my granddaughter. It seems Natalia had been preparing Lydia, just in case, practicing how to call Daddy, Grandma, and her close friends with speed dial. I praised my granddaughter for managing to make the call, saying, "You did great, you were so brave," but Lydia just shook her head and cried. And bit by bit, Lydia's story began to reveal shocking facts. I was astounded. What am I supposed to do now? But for Natalia and Lydia's sake, I can't just sit around and mourn. The next morning, I finally got a call from my SIL on my daughter's cell phone. Natalia, did your stomach ache go away? My daughter passed away. Way. My daughter, are you saying Lydia died? He panicked, misunderstanding that it was his daughter who had died. It's not Lydia, my daughter Natalia is the one who's gone. When I told him, he momentarily showed surprise before muttering, glad it wasn't Lydia, as if his wife didn't matter from the start. I was shaking with rage. I will never forgive him. I waited until Cooper was out, then used my daughter's key to enter the house. I found her diary in a drawer of the closet, and reading its contents, I was filled with renewed anger and shock. 3 days later, at the funeral, my SIL was greeting attendees with a composed face, pretending to sob. If only I hadn't been away for work. I'm sorry, Natalia. He lied effortlessly, having been out drinking instead of working. The attendees felt sorry for him, losing his wife suddenly when they had a young child. All the while, Lydia refused to go near her father and stayed by my side, her eyes filled with tears and fists clenched. Despite being just 5 years old, she seemed to understand she would never see her mother again. When a mourner asked Cooper why his daughter wasn't by his side, he approached us, but Lydia immediately tensed up and clung to me. Lydia, come to Daddy. No. Daddy is scary. When Cooper forcefully tried to pull her towards him, Lydia resisted, so I pulled her closer to me. If she's resisting, you don't have to force her. Madison, I don't want Lydia to be spoiled. I'm her father, after all. I could see the coldness in his eyes as he said this, and I clenched my fist, responding firmly. Natalia told me right before she passed away. Save Lydia, get her away from Cooper. Why would she say that, I wonder? Cooper seemed to catch his breath for a moment, then asked me with a probing look. Natalia said that. Did she say anything else? Was he worried about being found out? But I felt it was too soon to reveal everything. I had decided I would expose his lies in front of a larger audience. Just then, the funeral service was announced to begin by the host, and Cooper reluctantly returned to his seat. Lydia refused to leave my side and sat next to me. Looking around the funeral home, there were many from the company, who were Natalia's former co-workers before getting married Cooper. Everyone seemed genuinely saddened by Natalia's passing. The compassion she showed to everyone reminded me of her, and brought tears to my eyes again. Why couldn't I have saved her sooner? I feel so pathetic. In my moment of despair, Lydia gripped my hand tightly. As the funeral proceeded, Cooper stood up to give the eulogy as the chief mourner. My wife fell down the stairs and hit her abdomen hard. Who could have thought it would lead to this? We were a loving couple, never had a single fight. Natalia, please come back to me. His performance was convincing, with his face turning red, his voice shaking, and tears streaming down his face. It even caused some of the attendees to start crying. That's when Lydia, who had been sitting quietly by my side, suddenly stood up and pointed at her father. Liar. It was Daddy who kicked Mommy in the stomach. Lydia was biting her lip, glaring at Cooper, with tears rolling down her cheeks. What do you mean? He said she fell down the stairs, right? A murmur went through the crowd. Of course, it would. What Lydia said was completely different from what Cooper had told everyone. The attendees seemed baffled by this sudden revelation. In his panic, Cooper tried to cover it up. "Lydia, you're just angry because Mom passed away while Daddy was at work, right? But lying is wrong. Daddy kicked Mommy and pushed her down the stairs. Then he went away. After that, Mommy cried that her stomach hurt, that it was really painful." "That's right, Lydia. Mommy's stomach started hurting when Daddy wasn't there, so it's not Daddy's fault. I called Daddy for help, and you said you were drinking and told me to deal with it myself. That's why I called Grandma." "Lydia, don't say anything more unnecessary." As murmurs of disapproval started rising from the attendees, Cooper hurriedly approached Lydia, trying to forcefully silence her. I stepped in front of my granddaughter, glaring at Cooper. "Don't butt in, you old hag. Back off." As he tried to push me aside, I took out a notebook. It was Natalia's diary. "Here, it's written what you've done. Everyone, please listen." Cooper tried to stop me from reading, but some people from the company held him back. I borrowed a microphone from the host and read it carefully, making sure not to miss a single word. The diary detailed the verbal abuse she suffered from her husband, the inadequate living expenses provided, and how she was tormented. It also mentioned that when Cooper was in a bad mood, he would hit or kick her, leaving her with injuries that were painful to even read about. Natalia wanted to leave, but she felt trapped because Cooper threatened, "I will never let go of Lydia," making it impossible for her to move on. The last entry was written with a trembling hand, "I'm in pain. Mom, help me." I couldn't stop the tears rolling down my cheeks as I read. The harrowing contents elicited cries that sounded almost like screams from Natalia's close friends and family. Natalia had been enduring this reality without telling anyone. "Shut up. I was just disciplining my wife. It's Natalia's fault for not being able to manage the housework properly because she's too busy with childcare. You were just taking out your stress on her, weren't you? I know you weren't even giving her enough for living expenses. I was giving her $500 a month. It's her fault for not being able to manage that. There's no way she could live on that. She was even skipping meals for herself, while you did whatever you wanted, didn't you? It's my money, so I can spend it however I want, right?" Murmurs from the crowd like only $500 for living expenses, discipline by hitting and kicking, going to bars, started leaking out, and everyone was casting disdainful looks at Cooper, whispering to each other. Rattled by their reaction, he started to lash out. "I'm telling you, I did nothing wrong. I just kicked her a bit, and she fell down the stairs on her own. So, you admit doing that?" "I'm saying, I don't know. I went out to drink right away, and I wasn't there when she died. If you had taken her to the hospital right away, my daughter could have been saved. I will never forgive you." No one was on his side, and Cooper eventually started crying pitifully. Then, the sound of a police car approached, someone having called them, presumably. Cooper tried to flee, but he was restrained by family members and handed over to the police. "Lydia, you did great." I hugged my sobbing granddaughter. Afterward, the police examined my daughter's body before the cremation and found evidence. Given the grave nature of taking a life and his lack of remorse, it's unlikely that Cooper will be out from behind bars anytime soon. Lydia is now living with me. Gradually, she's regaining her calm and starting to smile again. I find myself rejuvenated by Lydia's smiles as I make an effort to stay healthy to bring her up. I would like to have a peaceful life with Lydia from now on.